Good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to the August 9th, 2022 regular scheduled board meeting. If you'll stand, I'd like to give the invocation. Followed by pledge of allegiance. While you're here. Good Lord, thank you for this day. We appreciate all that you do for us. It's a special day for the students, teachers, and staff. We ask that you be over them this year. Keep us all safe. Let us learn. Let us move forward in congruence and teach these kids and help them better their lives. Please watch over all of us as we continue through this year. Please be with our staff and all the way up from our cabinet all the way down to the folks that are in the trenches and on the front lines. So we do appreciate everyone that's here tonight and keep us moving forward. We ask all these blessings in your precious name. Amen. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We'll go into Ms. Tate for the spotlight on Glynn County.
Good evening and happy first day of school, everyone.
Good evening.
In May, Ms. Billy Folk was selected as Southeast Georgia's region representative for Georgia's Parent Mentor Program. She will work closely with the Georgia Department of Education representatives for the program and their leadership council. In addition to facilitating and providing support for our local parents, she will organize and facilitate the 4 Southeast region meetings and attend leadership council meetings with other region reps in the state. Please join me in congratulating Ms. Folk on this recognition. All right, and up next,
quick.
very quick, Heidi McDaniel and Tracy Wendell, who are specially designed instructional coaches with the Special Education Services and Supports Department, were among 30 selected special educators from around the state who successfully completed the first cohort of the Administrator Development Academy sponsored by the Georgia Council of Administrators in Special Education. Participants, as part of field-based experiences, were required to design and implement special education professional development that benefits all educators. Ms. McDaniel completed professional learning modules for administrators on special education, and Ms. Wendell completed her project on what every new special education teacher needs to know. The goal of the Administrator Development Academy is to prepare participants to assume leadership roles in special education administration. So please join me in congratulating these ladies on this achievement. Well, that concludes my portion of the agenda.
Well, step back in. We can't let her get away that easy, Ms. Folk and Ms. McKinney. I just want to say on behalf of us, thank you all for what you're doing, especially the Parent Mentor Program and the special ed and whatnot. I mean, whether you guys realize it or not, I mean, it means a lot, especially from the outside, for you guys to go above and beyond what you do. So thank you so much for everything, and we really look forward to continuing to work with you guys throughout the year. So thank you so much. We appreciate every one of you.
Thank you for your
All right.
support.
Congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Tate. I want to take a real quick, I don't know if you want to call it personal privilege or whatever, but we had an incident, I guess at the end of the year last year, or actually during the summer, I guess, with Glendale Elementary, where we had some vandalism at the school, where some folks had broke into the school and actually tore a lot of stuff up in the school or whatnot, and not major damage, but just aggravating damage where things were broken, peanut butter spread out throughout the school, things that were just time-consuming and cleaning and whatnot. And I just want to commend the teachers, the staff, and the parents that came out personally and took their time and effort when they could be, their days off were supposed to be, taking care of their classroom or cleaning up their stuff and moving things out or getting ready for the summer, or some of them even already on summer vacation, and actually taking the time to clean those rooms by hand, cleaning the hallways, the bathrooms, the staff areas, with brushes and, like I said, by hand and whatnot, and actually taking the time to take care of their school when they could have just said, you know what, let the custodians take care of it, or the actual maintenance crews come in and do what they needed to do. But they didn't do that. They took the pride. It came in and actually went through each place and got down on their hands and knees and picked trash up and cleaned things and got rid of the food items that were, unfortunately spread out. So again, I want to take a minute just to thank those folks, and if you will, pass along to that staff, of crews that went through there and took their time away from their families and away from the job when they could have been, moving forward, but they actually backed up, rallied with each other and cleaned up, their school as in it was their house, and that means a lot to me, and the teachers and the students that go there. I think that speaks highly in volumes of that type of pride that they have for their workplace. So again, I want to personally thank them publicly and the staff and all the things that they did. We really, truly appreciate it. So if you'll pass that along, thank you, sir. I appreciate it. All right, that'll bring us down to a citizens address the board. We do have a signed up participant tonight. I want to read a quick preamble before we get started. The Board of Education has adopted a policy that permits citizens under certain circumstances to address the board on a variety of topics on general concern and operations of our schools. We welcome visitors to the board meeting and are interested in hearing the taxpayers and the patrons of our school system. We have a few simple rules for public comment. Each person wishing to address the board must sign this roster. Each person is limited to 5 minutes, and the public comment portion of the meeting will not exceed 30 minutes. Any citizen who has a complaint involving an employee must first address this issue with the superintendent, and if not resolved, then may request to speak to the board. However, certain matters involving personnel and students must be heard in a closed session. The superintendent will inform you whether your complaint is one which should be referred to an executive session with the board. By signing this sheet, you are agreeing to abide by these rules. And our person signed up tonight is Taylor Ritz.
Yeah, I have comments about the proposed increase in the board.
Okay, can I get you to step to the podium if you would, please, ma'am? Thank you.
I won't take too much of your time. I appreciate y'all letting me speak tonight. I was an attendee at Glynn Academy. I was also, I'm a former teacher at Glynn Academy. I've been the girls soccer coach for 5 years. I'm a former candidate for Glynn County Commissioner. I'm a member of A Better Glynn. I'm a resident of Brunswick. I'm also the financial manager for a real estate developer in downtown Brunswick. I only had about 20 minutes between work and this meeting, so my list of what I would call misappropriation of funds is short, because I only had the 5 minutes I was sitting in that chair. But discussing increased millage rate when you have underpaid staff at all levels, you have sports teams that don't receive, certain sports teams that receive no funding from the school system. You have school supplies issued to students, which is amazing, except you've got kindergartners going home with notebooks and note cards and highlighters that they won't be using because they're in kindergarten. You've got school books older than the students who are currently using them. And you've given Dr. Spence a $48,000 raise and now want to talk about increasing our millage rate. Now, as the financial manager for an LLC that has multi-million-dollar assets across several entities, if I were to tell my boss that I needed to increase our money flow coming in because of the way I've used our funds, I would be fired. And so I don't have much prepared other than that, and other than I would like y'all to consider the people who live in each of your districts and how hard it is for them to get by right now with the way things are. And so to propose an increase in millage is to further stress the parents and the teachers of the school system that you are governing. That's all I have. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. All right. I will entertain a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
So moved.
Motion by Dr. Yergin, second by Ms. Gibbons. Any discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous. Thank you. Consent agenda items. I'll read them out real quick. Number 7, number 8, number 9, number 10, 11A, B, C1, D2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Policy we need to do tonight, right? Dress code. Okay, so we'll leave that. Any additions or deletions on those? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Dr. Yergin,
Second.
second by Ms. Gibbons. Any discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous. Thank you. So that'll drop us down to D1, or D1, which is the 2022. Well, let me read those back just so everybody understands and the public hears it. Number 7 is the approval of the July 12th, 2022 work session minutes. Number 8 is the approval of the July 12th, 2022 regular board meeting minutes. Number 9 is the approval of the July 21, 2022 special called meeting minutes. Number 10 is approval of the July 26, 2022 special call meeting minutes. 11A is personnel, 11B is field trips, 11C1 is the GOOD report, 11D2 is renewal of the HMH hosting service, 11D3 is the HVAC chillers for Glynn Middle School and Jane Macon Middle School, 11D4 is the nutrition equipment surplus, 11D5 is architect contract agreement for Satilla Marsh Elementary. 11D6 is intergovernmental agreement between us and the Coastal Plains Education Charter High School. And 11D7 is memorandum of understanding for us and the McIntosh County school system. Now, I'm sorry, any additions or deletions or discussions? All right, I'll entertain a motion for, we've already approved it, didn't we? Okay, that brings us down to 11D1, which is the 2022-23 millage rate discussion by Mr. Griner. Obviously, we have went over all these things during the work session on Thursday. Those numbers can be presented if anyone needs them. The reason we have the rate discussion up because I wanted to go back over the numbers first of all. Secondly, the advertisement schedule that we had planned before. And we had the speakers say that she doesn't understand why we're talking about an increase, but I don't ever recall talking about an increase. We're actually talking about a decrease. So I don't know if there was misinformation given or what, or maybe you just didn't watch the meeting on the work session, but to my knowledge, no one's mentioned an increase. Everything's been about the decrease. So we'll open that up. Mr. Griner, if you will, we can go over the numbers and look at the rollback rates and the actual, also the reduction that we're discussing.
Okay, all right, thank you, Mr. Manson. The very top line just shows what was in the general fund budget, which was approved back in June of this year for FY 22-23, or the fiscal year 23. We had estimated taxes a little over $82 million. That was based on a 4% increase in the digest. As we discussed last Thursday night, there was actually almost a 12% increase once we got the final numbers from the tax assessor. So each one of these scenarios, you'll see I highlighted what the decrease looks like on each one. If you go down to the very bottom, it shows what our current millage rate, and the budget was also based on that current millage rate of 16.157. So leaving that, if we left the millage where it is, we would have about a $6 million difference from where we budgeted, and about a 8.1% would be our advertised tax increase. And keeping in mind, that's the inflationary growth of the digest. That's no new construction. That's just basically your house was worth this in 2021, your house is worth this now in 2022 based on the assessor going in and reassessing all the property. So that's where that tax increase comes from. So I've presented several different scenarios. I wanted to get rid of the .007. I mean, I'd get, if y'all want to leave it, it's fine, but every one of these takes that out of it. So it's basically, we discussed a 0.5 decrease, 0.25, 0.75 last time, even a 1 mil. I just added the .007 just to get that, so it's a round, even number. It's just easier math. Dr. Spence and I talked about it. And so again, I also added 0.25 and 0.15. I think Dr. Spence had asked me to add those as well. So we got several different scenarios. Again, you'll see the increase decrease from what's in the budget of the 82 million, which all these are actual increases over what was in the budget. And then we were going to have to use with the original budget about $1.2 million of our fund balance. So that third column that says projected net income or loss just reflects what would happen, at those different decreases. For instance, the decrease of a 1 mil would mean we'd have to use about $450,000 of our fund balance. So each scenario, if you do the 0.5, we would actually be increasing fund balance by almost 2.3 million. And then I did the advertised tax increase because when we run the, once a rate's decided on, then we run the ad in the paper, that will be the actual increase that will show up in that ad. So I thought that's kind of good information to have as well. So you'll see that's what would actually run in the Brunswick News this week, so, depending on which rate. I'll be happy to answer any questions. I think I hit all the scenarios we discussed. I can definitely, if there's another one, we can calculate that while we're in here. So.
Do we have the actual, I guess, attachment from last week where it has the...
Yes, sir, we do.
Over the course of the years?
We do, yeah.
The rate?
It's actually the first page
Here we
there,
go.
which is our 5. The Department of Revenue requires you to do the current digest as well as the 5-year history. This ad will actually say current 22. I did catch that last time, 2022 tax digest and 5-year history, but I did fix that. But this was the one from last week. But yes, it does show the 5-year history plus the current year. So all those numbers are correct.
And they are all the same. I mean, we've had the same millage rate for quite some time.
Yes, sir. Yeah, we actually, I have that number. Hold on a second, I can tell you how far back that goes. To FY, hold on, let me do, just to make sure this thing's lined up right. FY 15, the millage rate was actually decreased just a little bit. It was 16.23 in FY 14. It went down to 16.157 in FY 15. So since tax year 2014, it's been at that same millage rate.
Right, so almost what? We got since 14, you said, correct?
Yes, sir. That is
8
correct.
years.
So 8 years we've had the same millage rate,
Yes, sir.
and which decreased to get to that millage rate from 2014, right?
Yes, sir.
And so can you, I hate to put you on the spot, but this is the confusing part to everyone, is the
Yes, sir.
rollback rate
Yes, sir.
as opposed to, the rollback rate's what they recommend or what the numbers come out to, but
Right.
just because we don't roll back to that rate does not mean we're increasing the
Right.
millage rate. So could you
Right.
explain that
Yes, sir.
in the best possible way?
I will. The Department of Revenue requires you to do a rollback calculation, which basically, again, looks at the 21 digest compared to the 22 digest. It factors in any inflationary growth, like reassessment growth in your property. When you run those numbers, the rollback rate came to 14.938. Basically, what that's saying is, if you set that as the millage rate for 22, it's supposed to give you the same amount of taxes you would have collected in 21 with the millage rate at 16.157, because there's been about an 8.41% increase in that inflationary growth. So that's where that comes from. So by law, if we don't roll all the way back, it's considered a property tax increase because the value of your house may or may not, I think Mrs. Sand said that perfectly last time. With a lot of the exemptions here, your property value may or may not increase, but it's considered a property tax. If your house did go up in value, there will be an increase in your taxes, even though the millage rate could stay the same. If we kept the millage rate at 16.157, for instance, which we're, as you mentioned, we're not really discussing that, but if we did keep it there, your taxes may go up, but we didn't change the millage rate at all, just because the value of your house went up. So,
And it could also catch you to where if you had not done the homestead at this point and you dropped it,
Yeah.
you could actually lose money.
yeah, and your house could actually, if it goes down in value, of course, you're going to pay less tax, so, which with the given market, that's probably not as reasonable. It's
Right.
probably more reasonable that values pretty much went up across the board. But,
So what would be the, if we did what the Department of Revenue recommended, what would be the total loss on that?
I did put that on the scenario. We got close with the 15.15. I think I did go calculate it after the meeting. It was around $600,000 to $700,000 we'd have to use out of fund balance. So it still wouldn't be as much as we had originally predicted because we only used a 4% increase, but it still would be about $600,000 to $700,000.
But what would that total be as far as millage rate itself, the numbers, the decreased
Oh, the
numbers? would be
decrease,
total?
it's 1.219 mils to get us down to.
Which in a mill is what? Right now,
It's 5.6 million, 5.66.
So close to $6 million
Yes.
if we were to roll back to the 14?
Yes, yeah.
Gotcha.
And it's just because we, and we had additional numbers from the tax assessor, but I think we used we kind of used the 5-year history average, which is about 4% when Mrs. Preston presented the budget, which, is, based on history, that's where we would have been, so. So we have that, but just because it came out such a higher increase, it's given us that flexibility.
All right, any questions for, go ahead, Mike.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion, we reduce the millage rate to 15.65 for next fiscal year.
Second.
15.65. All right, we got a motion on the table to have a reduction down to 15.65. Got a second or a motion by Mr. Halsey, got a second by Mr. McDowell. We have discussion. Any recommendations? I mean,
I feel comfortable that we can survive at 15.75. I think we can operate a school system efficiently at 15.75. I worry if we lose much more than that.
so,
And we have to take in consideration that inflation and things.
That's what it.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, the 15.75 with the inflation. Up and down
The price
and
of
swing.
everything is going up.
Right.
We're seeing that across the board. not
Yes, but it's
just-
flattening out a little bit, and even with this reduction, you're still realizing $2.3 million. I mean, you know what I'm saying? This has been a long time coming. We probably should have done it before now, but I mean, to say we question whether or not we'll be able to survive, we may have to reassess. I still think this is a pretty safe number to go with. It's still almost 5% increase. We'll have to see what happens, but I don't see us taking a sharp dive. It may decrease a little bit, so maybe next year we only realize 3% or whatever. But I don't know that we're going to take a sharp dive like we did a number of years ago.
My thinking is the difference between 15.65 and 15.75 is a little less than $500,000. Just historically, throughout the year, we've been known to save money that we budgeted through, maybe not filling a position here or there. We've done a really good job of that. I think we owe it, as other prices are going up, we owe it to the taxpayers to bring that down.
We are bringing it down from 16.1 to 15.75. That's 75. But it still will be a decrease to the taxpayers, though.
Right.
Okay.
But maximize that.
I can agree to support that. I mean, I was originally going to kind of push for a little more, but I think I agree with Mr. Halsey that, the reason why my thought process was trying to go a full mill was just because our general fund we've got some big pockets now. I think John's big thing was always trying to stay around 20 million, and now we've got 28 in our balance. So we've done a good job. So I can live with the 15.65, but would like to look at it again next year. I mean, if we're projecting and everything's kind of staying the same, I think we owe it to the taxpayer to really help out what we can, because we can always raise taxes, but I think if we're in a position that we can lower taxes, it's a good thing to do that. That's all I got, Mr. Master.
So many don't when they have the opportunity to. And I think it's a great opportunity for us to show that we give back to the community when we were there begging the community, please be there with us while things are getting hammered and understand, and they did. So I think it's just time to get back when we can.
So we have a motion and a second.
We do. Is there any more discussion? Okay. All those in favor for a decrease in the millage rate to 15.65, please signify by raising your hand. Any opposed? It's unanimous.
Thank you. Mr. Mansell, could we do one more thing real quick, just with discussion?
Absolutely. Yes, sir.
On the 22-23 millage rate, Chris, if you could go to that last number 3 there, please. Thank you. I just want to make sure those hearing dates and times, because what the next step will be now that we have the 15.65 is to run the first ad Thursday of this week and the second one next week, but we have to have those hearing dates in there, and I just want to make sure those times and dates work with everyone.
Okay.
Yep.
Also, Mr. Mansell, one of those hearing dates, we would like to have a personnel report, if that's okay.
Yes, sir.
Which one would you guys like to have?
Can we do it at 6 o'clock?
6 o'clock, Ms. Seals? Okay.
It's on the 18th. Will you email us that out as far as the millage rate timeline, the hearings, and the
Yes,
that
sir.
personnel?
Yes, sir.
Thank you so much.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for putting all that together and answering those questions, Mr. Griner. I appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
Thank
Thank you all.
Any further discussion for Mr. Griner? Okay, thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
All right, that'll bring us down to number 8, which is the V Oaks Farms real estate sales agreement. Dr. Spence, you want to cover that? You have that in front of you? 'Cause I don't have it on my, got it, actually, I've got it in here. I don't think there's a addendum. Well, I can't log into
Here's
the
a-
thing
here's an
without giving
attachment.
up my, what, I don't want to go to China and get on my stuff. Got a technical issue.
You want me to go?
Small
Yeah, go ahead,
technical
you
issue.
can, and I'll back you up.
Basically, we've been approached by Farms Real Estate, which is Adam Wainwright's company, to purchase the land on Habersham across from the old Brunswick Gym. It's about 18 acres there, and for $175,000. He's also promised to build a parking lot that we can use for additional parking for our baseball and softball and wrestling the activities that may take place when it's overcrowded.
Okay. Any discussion on that before we do?
I think it's worth mentioning that we posted that property for sale some point a year or so ago at that price, and really just had one or two considerations. Right. So, yeah, this was put out for kind of a public to respond, and it's been a year, would you say, Mr. Lake?
At least.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Ms. Sims. And it'll be a good project for not only V Oaks, but also the school system, as far as what they have planned with the agricultural and the different farming aspects for the school system and the kids to be able to go and take part in that. So we appreciate Mr. Wainwright and V Oaks Foundation for coming on board and offering to purchase that property. So, all right, I'll entertain a motion to accept the V Oaks
I'll make that motion.
real estate agreement. Motion by Ms. Gibbons,
Second.
second by Marcus. Any discussion?
I would like to also add that, we have been going back and forth with Adam's potential of doing something here, and what I liked about it is the fact we are getting the parking. That was an unusable site. In case y'all remember, we were trying to build a school on it, but we had some wetland that grew in the middle of it. So with this, it still allows, with his plans for the property, will allow for our students to learn, and it's going to benefit the community. So to me, it's just a great, it's not really a partnership. It's going to be future growth between what he does and what we can do with him. So I think that's a great thing. I just want to make that statement. So great for the community, great for our students.
Thank you, sir.
It's him giving back is what it is. I mean, just,
And it's going back on the tax roll.
All right. So we'll take a vote. All those in favor? It's unanimous. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Policy Committee, Mr. Madala.
come on.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Good evening.
That's not the right of that. It's supposed to be from a copy of the actual policy. That's what I'm doing, it's supposed to be the actual policy.
Sidebar.
Yeah, I guess.
Tell them to go to assembly. It needs to go to assembly.
Yes, I was sending on page, please.
JCDB.
Can you do it without the slide?
Yes, I can do it
Go
without
ahead,
that.
go ahead.
In July, Mr. Chairman and Board of Education members, Dr. Spence, we presented some proposed changes to the student dress code. And to give you context, Dr. Spence and the cabinet went out to each school site in the spring to get feedback on ways in which we can support schools. And 12 out of 16 schools, there was an overwhelming response or question of us to revise the current dress code. And so what we've done is we've put something in place that we believe can truly be enforceable by our school leaders. And so, as I mentioned before, a couple of things that we did change was the allowance for tights or leggings to be worn with an appropriate length shirt. We also changed the length of the bottoms of shorts simply because of, think about a girl that may be really tall compared to a girl that's really short. We wanted to be sensitive to that. Likewise, we wanted to be sensitive to being concerned about our safety with regard to wearing head coverings in the building. Not to say that they are prohibited from having hats or wearing hoodies, just we don't want them to have their heads covered in the building for safety purposes. And of course, one of the other recommendations we made was to not permit sleepwear to be worn in schools. And certainly with all of these suggestions, our administrators still have the authority to deem what would be appropriate or not appropriate.
Can we enforce that with the parents?
Unfortunately, Dr. Yergin, I was tasked with just the students. So we were hoping to have something that would be amenable to the culture and also to be sensitive to parents being able to purchase things that would fall within the realm of what would be allowed. So we hope that these recommendations will be viewed as positive ways of being able to be responsive, not just to the concerns of our staff and students, but to our community and our families as well.
Will we be making exceptions for Pajama Day?
Yes, ma'am. There's actually a line in there that talks about administrators, if they have special events. Sometimes schools may do a hat day as a fundraiser and those types of things. Dr. Spence was very clear in making sure that our administrators still had the autonomy to make those type of decisions as needed on their campus. But just overall, for the totality of what we would expect, we wanted to have those things listed specifically.
So I know we've talked about it, I believe, in a meeting or two
Yes,
prior
ma'am.
to this. Do we have a plan for the administrators at each school to disseminate the information? They may have already talked about it in some way, but just, so people are made aware. Not everybody watches our meetings.
Yes,
or
ma'am.
So forth.
We, about 2.5 weeks prior to the beginning of school, might have been even after this board meeting, the July 12th meeting, our PR department started pushing out things on social media, pushing out things through our schools also included that, like in one calls. I have 2 children at 2 different schools, and so both schools in one call notifications discuss the changes in dress code, reference the website for them to go to see those changes that have been proposed. So I do believe we've done a sufficient job of making sure we're being proactive in putting that information out to the community to make them aware of some of the changes. And again, some of the changes we've made are a little more lenient than what we had
Sure.
prior to.
Right.
So I'm hoping that people will respond positively to those proposed changes.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
We asked principals in addition to put it in their weekly newsletters, so those went out as well,
Yeah.
directly from the schools to parents as well.
I would imagine maybe they're discussing it in homerooms too, for the high schoolers, which is
The
a
grade
big
level
part of what
assemblies,
we're
for
talking
sure.
about.
That's the big.
Yeah.
I'm confident that,
Thank you.
absolutely. Any other questions or concerns that I can address?
Hearing none, I make a motion, we adopt the new dress code policy.
Okay, motion on the floor by Mr. McDowell,
Second motion.
second by Reverend Givens. Any discussion? All those in favor? It is unanimous. Thank you, Ms. Haverly.
Thank you all.
Before we jump off of policy, since we're in policy, this is more of a regulation, I guess, but I was going to have Dr. Green and Ms. Miller explain or review one more time how we came to the pens and paper and the stuff that was given to us or whatnot. So could you put that out? Because we got a couple of calls on, I guess we still have some schools putting out or expressing, I guess, still buying stuff or whatnot as far as supplies and equipment. So there seems to be some kind of, maybe a little small disconnect in what we're providing and what the classroom still needs. So could you, in a nutshell, go over how we got to the point of, accepting some of the boxes or stuff that we've got and how we're disseminating that information as well?
And grade level approval, grade level appropriation.
Yeah, so we came up with two different lists first. Dr. Green came up with a secondary list, I came up with an elementary list of supplies. And then we just compared our two lists and kind of whittled it down to some of the things that were the same for both groups of students, so that when we put the RFP out, we could get bids back from companies on the same supplies. So we did that, and when that came back, we granted the bid to the lowest bidder, and we are still waiting on some of those supplies to arrive. Not all schools have received their supplies yet. So we've been in contact with the vendor for that reason, but that's the way the list itself came up. It's definitely things that students in all grades K through 12 will use at some point during their school year.
In addition, anytime we make a decision, we vet it through our principals, and so we submitted the list once we came up with one. Came to consensus, which was very easy to do. We shared it with all of our principals, K-12, who then provided input and commented on the shared Google form with what they thought should be added or deleted, and shared it with their leadership teams as well. And so collectively, we felt like we had a comprehensive list of the most basic needs of school supplies that could be purchased, in an effort, obviously, to reduce some of the financial burden of parents going into the school year, especially since we do have our ESSER funds, which are very specific to learning loss and some of the things that we can do to mitigate COVID relief. And so we wanted to utilize that opportunity to do something for our external constituents, our parents. And so it was a thought back in April that if we purchase some of the basic supplies, again, it would eliminate some of that financial burden going into the school year, and we could really focus on academics and going back to the basics and launching our new literacy program and launching some of the other programs that we put in place to close some of those gaps created by COVID. So it definitely was, in thought, a good deed to really help our families and our community.
And what was the funding source on that?
The funding source was our CARES fund.
So no local?
No local funds were used at all, and it was specific to, again, closing the achievement gaps, but more importantly, supporting our external constituents, our parents, our families.
Right, exactly.
As a result of what was created from COVID,
Yes, ma'am.
which is the only reason currently you can use ESSER 3 to mitigate or to relieve issues associated with COVID.
And the supplies we gave to K through third, they are appropriate for their grade level?
Absolutely.
Yes,
I
ma'am.
have a first and a
Absolutely.
third grader.
Okay, excellent. Any other questions for?
We're not going to have any more next year, the year after, the year after.
So our COVID relief funds are for 3 years. This is a year-by-year decision. We'd have to go to Dr. Spence to determine whether or not this is something that we want to do next year, but we only decided to do it this year because, again, it was an immediate response to what we saw as far as just being able to do something special for our families, but then also have schools focus on instruction as soon as we come in and not have to worry about supplies. If we provided them, then immediately we jump right into instruction, going back to the basics.
I mean, it's a good thing. I just want to make sure that people don't realize that this is an every year thing and expect it next year. I can imagine
Yes,
the phone calls from that.
Yes, sir.
And just when the information comes out, say, we get to do it this year because.
So if we ordered 13,000 kits, how many are we waiting on?
The middle schools, and I think we have 3 elementary schools that haven't received, as well as 1 high school.
One of our middle schools actually received their kits yesterday, and from the vendor, we got tracking information. Of course, they blame it on the trucking industry and the delays and shortages and drivers, of course. But we were told that they would be here tomorrow for sure, and so we're hoping that's the case.
I also understand that Horizon and New Beginnings are computer-based class, but would they have students be receiving supplies?
Horizons, there are some computer-based programs. GLC, the alternative program, is a computer-based program, but Bright Beginnings and Newcomers, those are not computer-based programs.
So they will be receiving supplies?
They received them at their home
They
school.
received them at the base school, the supplies. So with the exception of the students at GLC, which Mr. Haywood had a special budget set aside for him for his supplies to purchase based off whatever the needs are. Newcomer students come from Brunswick High and Glynn Academy to that site, so they come with their supplies. Our bilingual social worker, teacher, and para actually go to the middle schools to support our limited English proficient students. And then with Bright Beginnings, we hadn't decided on when exactly the students would transition over because we're putting the structures in place to identify those students who will escalate or progress through the tiers.
Okay.
And right now, we just don't have that information. We need time for school to happen and kids to develop patterns of behavior and schools to respond to those patterns of behavior. So we don't currently have students in Bright Beginnings right now. Those students will get supplies, obviously, though, from their base
home school.
And they actually get instruction from a teacher. We hire teachers, licensed professionals, to actually instruct those students.
Okay.
If we got one in there on the first day, we're in trouble.
We don't.
Okay,
We don't.
good.
In fact, we have those teachers that are stationed there. They'll be going out into our schools, going ahead and building relationships with some of the students that may be attending.
Right, later.
Can you touch base on the warehouse that we have for the other supplies that are available?
Yeah, and even though we bought the essential supplies, we do have an internal warehouse within our school system where principals can purchase supplies. If all teachers have to do is go to their principals, and that's not always been advertised, and so that's one thing that Dr. Green and I have talked about. You know, anything that our warehouse can stock in bulk, we get a huge discounted price on it, like binders, things like that. So we're encouraging, you know, teachers, if that's what they require for a specific class, say in high school a binder class or in middle school a binder, then we're encouraging them to talk to their principals about purchasing those through our warehouse versus having parents purchase them.
Dr. Spence, can you add that to your, I'm sure you already do, but to the principals' meetings again so they can, you know, give that information out to the teachers as far as what is available? I appreciate it. Okay, thank you very much for touching on it. I appreciate it. Again, it's just another example of what we're trying to do to help out with the students and the supply programs that we have. And again, at no cost to the taxpayer. So thank you very much for going back to that. Any other discussion on that topic? Questions?
Well, no extra for the parents as well as the teachers. I think every teacher I've known through family, friends, if it's not 100%, it's got to be right there. They go out and buy supplies for kids on their own. So I think this is helping our teachers out as much as it's helping the parents out. So,
Thank you. Okay.
No teacher in Glynn County should have to go out and buy supplies with their own personal money. And I can't help other counties, but
Right.
that should not happen in Glynn County.
All right. Any discussion? Any further discussion on this? Okay. Executive session, we need anything? Land legal? Good. All right, I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Motion by Dr. Yergis, second by Mr. Gibbons. Any discussion? All those in favor? It's unanimous at 6:45. Thank y'all very much.